Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 373rd film from 2020. It's the Indian Hindi language drama called Milestone, or Meel Patthar. It's directed by Ivan Ayr and stars Suvinder, Vicky and Lakshvir, Saran. I am Jesse and I am your host. Thank you as always for joining me for this Netflix original film. If you are interested in checking this film out and haven't done so just yet, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because we will spoil this show or this film as we go through this show. We do kick off the show with the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one's about a man who struggles with the death of his wife and the progression of his age. Very vague, very vague from me today, but I don't want to give away too much from this one. I think this one's a good one to sort of break down and discuss. So we will get into it and talk about how this one ended up on Netflix. Or some little bit of information around the film. So around the world, this film in Spanish, it's called Odometer. So that is in relation to our main character in this film is a truck driver, and he's we look at the Portuguese title and it's 500,000 kilometers. So he has reached 500,000 kilometers on his odometer, and he is like the first driver, or the first truck driver in this company to have done that. So it's a big landmark, a big milestone in the English translation too. In Greek, it's called The Landmark. Meh, not really a fan of that title. In Russian, it's called New Twist. Meh, rubbish title too. Turkish, I like this one. Road Tired. Just that double play on the word tired or tire. I really like that title. That's a good one. So anyway, this film is partially, it's in Punjabi, and the protagonist is Punjabi, and he's working in the New Delhi region in the film. It was shot in January and February of 2020. The director, Ayr, said that the film tells you where you are and how much further you have to go. He further explains, it's like how we say there is a significant moment or milestone one has crossed. That is there in the film. Our character gets to a certain milestone which he is unaware of, and certain things begin to happen which make things uncertain. Very nice, very nice. This was obviously filmed just before a lot of the lockdowns for the COVID pandemic around the world. So after the lockdown was imposed in India, the director Ayr got the film edited and sound mixed from a remote location. And the film was shot in this village in Haryana. To get into how truck drivers operate, the director spent time with several truck drivers for research in Delhi and Chandigarh. Both the actors also took truck driving lessons for their role, which is a pretty cool thing to get into the characters that they're playing. The film actually has no background score, which is quite an effort and quite an achievement in a film as well. And then Netflix did pick up the distribution rights for the film, and it was released worldwide on Netflix on the 7th of May 2021. That's why we're doing this show in this order. It is a 2020 film. It did debut at the Venice Film Festival on the 3rd of September 2020 and a variety of other festivals before hitting Netflix in May of 2021. As said before, this was filmed in New Delhi, and it did win 6 awards across a variety of festivals and had a further 14 nominations, so fairly well received on the awards circuit. What about critics and audiences? What are they saying about this film? On Rotten Tomatoes, it sits at 85%. That's on 13 reviews, so that is fresh, not certified, but it is fresh. The audience, only a little bit lower at 75%. That's on less than 50 ratings, but still fairly solid. On IMDb, sits at a 6.6 out of 10. Only on 858 ratings, so not a great amount of people have logged it. The same as Letterboxd, only 1,002 people have logged this film on Letterboxd, but it sits at a 3.5 out of 5, which is a super solid score, and it's been logged by 1,400 people on Letterboxd. There is nothing on Metacritic for this film. So what are my early thoughts on this one? It was a pleasant surprise. I think this is a character-driven drama about loss and dealing with aging, and I think there's so much to like about the lead performance and the subtlety of this film that this is a bit of a recommendation for me. This is a good film. Enjoyed it. Let's talk about the characters. As I mentioned in the cast, there's only really 2 main characters. We've got Galib and Pash. So Galib is this guy. He's moved from a village to the city to support his wife, but she's now passed, and he's a truck driver. That's his life now. That's all he's got. He's got no kids. And he's reminded of not having any kids or family. And this film is about him trying to deal with the grief of losing his wife, even though the audience discovers throughout that she'd pretty much left him already, and the idea of age and him being replaced because of his age and the youth coming through and taking, over from people that are aging a little bit and needing to move on in life. And that's seen through Pash, who is Galib's young understudy who's forced upon him almost, and is a representation of what Galib loathes. He's young, he's eager, and he's not up to his standards. Like, this is a young, brash kid who answers his phone on the job. He's got no idea where the equipment is located on a truck to fix it. Like, he can't find a wrench and these sorts of things. But this Pash kid does admire Galib for his dedication and the stories he's heard about him and all the overtime he does. But we know, or the audience works out, that Galib almost does this just to cope with his wife's death, even though there's probably a little bit of an inkling that he maybe did this. This may have been a reason as to why his marriage broke down anyway. But this Pash guy, he's not prepared for what life is like, especially when he sees death on the road as well. And when he takes over from Galib, he crashes the truck and walks away from driving trucks, almost proving that the youth at times don't have what it takes for these jobs that people have spent years developing their sort of craft almost. I mean, that's a weird thing to say about truck driving, but that's almost where it's at. There's only one other character I'll touch on, which is Dilborg, and he was a co-worker of Galib. He's this aging guy as well, similar age, losing his vision. He can't drive at night anymore, which is obviously a requirement for truck drivers. And we see that he struggles with alcohol and booze and his temper, meaning even though he probably deserves a proper retirement party or a farewell for some respect for the years that he's put in, he doesn't receive this and doesn't get it. And Galib, his hands are tied. He can't really help him with this either. The director, Ivan Ayr, in this film, this is a director we are familiar with on this show. He's got 3 shorts, and this is his second feature. His debut film was a film called Soni, S-O-N-I, which we covered on this show a while ago, and I very much enjoyed that film as well, and I highly recommend checking the film out, possibly the podcast discussion after as well, but obviously this film too, so building a bit of a name for himself. Let's talk about some scenes. What are some scenes that stood out? What are some ones that didn't work? For me, the opening scene, there are no visuals. It's just this black screen with sounds, which opens to Galib opening the back of his truck and the camera tracking him around this a bit of a factory as well as a workstation for all these trucks. I just thought it was a super effective way to show us who this guy was that we were going to be following for the next hour and a half. We do see Galib go back to his home village. Just some of the most beautiful scenery I've seen on screen. The location, there's like this haze, coloured, huey, purpley sort of sky. It just looked absolutely gorgeous. I liked the pot plants on Galib's balcony. There's a man that knocks on his door and he wants to paint the pot plants, and Galib reluctantly allows him to do it because his wife wanted it. And these pot plants, they're empty. There's no plants in them. There's no life in them. And then later in the film, he goes to his neighbor's balcony, and she has this kid who keeps dropping toys and reminding him of, I guess, the life that he doesn't have, or the child he doesn't have, and interrupting his mundane almost life. And her pot plants, they're filled with plants that are thriving and alive, and just the opposite of his life. I thought that was really effective. Galib has this conversation with Dilborg when he's very drunk and causing a commotion in the apartment block, and Dilborg talks about listening to people rather than being deaf and ignoring what's going on around you. I thought that was a really effective conversation. Pash, the young driver that Galib's worried is going to replace him, he's asking Galib why he left Kuwait, and he says because of Saddam Hussein, and Pash's like, I've never heard of him, I've got no idea. I just thought that was a really awkward moment showing his youth and complete ignorance of the world, and I wrote in my notes, I was like, this is almost like a needle drop, and then this music just kicked in almost like it was an actual needle drop. I thought it was so good. I really liked that. Galib goes to follow up on his wife's death at, it looked like some sort of government department sort of building, and he has this conversation with a worker there about her passing and having submitted all the paperwork, but the camera never leaves his face. It just stays stationary on him. We don't see anything else in that building. I thought that was really well done. There's a conversation Galib has with his neighbor, the one who has the kid that keeps annoying him, and reveals that his wife, his wife and her used to hang out and discuss their worries and how she'd thought that he was unfaithful, but it's almost clear that he was addicted to his work because, and he says, I could never defend myself because she believed her truth. I thought that was a really, really nice little moment as well. What didn't I like? Not much. There's a scene where Galib was making a delivery, and there was some analogy about a naked driver and not being arrested because he was naked or something like that. It just didn't land or make sense for me. And this isn't this isn't an issue with the film as such, but it's something I constantly complain about with Netflix international films. There's just one line of dialogue in English in this film, and it's not subtitled. And it frustrates me because it was a moment where Galib gives his final offer to his wife's family of a repayment, and I had to pause and watch the scene again to understand what was being said. It really frustrated me. Like, put a subtitle on. If you've got subtitles for the whole film, you can subtitle one line of English. All right, themes, ideas. This one's saying an awful lot. It's hard to put all the ideas together nicely, so I'm just going to talk them through. Obviously, we see the idea of loneliness and grief and pain, and we see this through the pain in the back that Galib has, and carrying the weight on your shoulders or your back of the idea of being old almost and being disposed of for the young. And on top of that, you've got that pain and trauma of dealing with death and working double shifts at work so you don't have to sleep or have nightmares or deal with that loss. And it's almost like a numbness that not only dealing with life, but what's happening around. We see protests and strikes and fighting for wages and deaths and hard work all happening around our characters traveling through the countryside. This backache too that we spoke about before, the wife's demise almost that he feels guilt for, because we do see that he doesn't, we see twice I guess in the film where he goes back to his hometown and has to face his wife's family, but the idea too that there's a workforce that isn't there to support a weariness from age as well, and money in this film, it doesn't fix everything, especially death and trying to pay family members off, or corruption of the police officers and checkpoint people and robbers and paying off people to make life easier. It's all there as well. And I think alcohol is the quick fix that many in society in this film use as well, and we see that through the transportation of it as well, and drinking and driving and drinking yourself silly at stages in this film. Rain at the end of this film, it arrives right at the end, almost as we see Galib on the phone to Pasha's sister saying that he's okay, we found him, and it's almost like this idea of regrowth, that not everything is down and out for Galib as he may think. Maybe there is a positive way moving forward for him to continue his job and find happiness as well. And obviously the struggles of middle-class India in this film too. Looking at the outside, they mention there's this line about how well a white man in America has it compared to them, and how they're struggling and how backwards they are in India in certain moments too. What did I take away from this one? I think we've done a lot of Indian films on this show, and I really think that this didn't have any big Bollywood songs or performances, and it just focused on character and great cinematography and great camera work. There was a lot of good tracking shots used in this film, and it was such a pleasant surprise. I just wanted to sort of comment on that. We have a section where we sometimes go on IMDb to check an actor or an actress out. I used Google this time, just because there's a scene where Galib, he asks for a drink, and he calls it a desi. I had no idea what it was, so I had to pause the film and look up what a desi was, and a desi's alcohol, and that made so much more sense throughout the film every time he goes back for a drink as well, and ties in with that theme or that idea of the quick fix of alcohol in this film as well. Some questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas. These are some quotes and some lines from the film, but there's a line where they say, if good times pass, bad times will too. I think that's a really good sentiment, a really good thing, that yes, you're going to struggle through bad times, but you've got to think, yes, they will end. They will finish at some stage. It's just you've got to get through those bad times. I thought that was good. I like this quote I saw online. Galib's reached a milestone. He's driven 500,000 kilometers on road. None of the other truck drivers with him have managed this feat, but where does his life's journey take him after this? What's his destination? How many more milestones is he destined to cross? Just some great things to ponder, that idea that he's got no wife, he's got no kids, he's got no family, he's probably not going to go back to his village. What is he going to do now? Is he just going to dedicate himself to his work and that's it? Or is he going to, I don't know. I'd love to know. I think that's a really good little thought. There's a moment where Galib says, I do this job because this is who I am. My misery lies in the fact that this is all I am. Like, just wow. Like he that's just crazy that his work is his life, and that's how sad he is. And he possibly gave up on his wife and life for work. What a sad situation. And I think that probably helps me argue that the idea he didn't actually, his wife thought he was having an affair, but I don't think he did. I think he was just so dedicated to his work. There's a moment too, Galib seems, he almost takes responsibility for his wife's death. I sort of touched on this before, because he doesn't question his village hierarchy when they force him to repay a debt to her family? And this is a bit of an unanswered question in the film, but did his wife take her own life? And that's why he feels guilt, because she was so depressed and sad that she'd almost lost her husband. Such a heavy thing to... I know there's a lot of commentary in this film is about how dark and heavy this film is. But I think, as I mentioned before, the rain, the idea of regrowth, rebirth, there's positives at the end of this film too. The last question I had, Glib, he gets mail at the start of this film. He gets an envelope, he sits at the table, he reads it, he puts the mail back in the envelope, but it's never revealed what was in the letter. I guess you've just got to assume that it was something about his wife. I'm not sure. I'm interested to know though. Other than that, we are ready to wrap this one up. We give the films on this show a rating out of 5. So for me, like, the director, Ivan Ayr, I think is a director to watch. Like, this is his second Netflix original film that's really hit the mark for me. He knows how to tell a narrative and incorporate themes and ideas in a real effective way that works for audiences no matter where they are in the world. And I think that's really key. Such a great film, really enjoyable. We are on socials. What did I give it out of 5? I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. 3.5 out of 5 for me, solid score. We're on socials. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, and we have X, formerly known as Twitter. The question on socials for this episode: can you drive a truck? I definitely could not. I think a lot of trucks are manual, aren't they? And in Australia, you need a heavy duty vehicle license, I think, to drive a truck as well, or a minibus or a van. So I can't. But is there anyone, like, how hard is it? Like, I could not imagine driving such a big thing. I would not feel safe at all. Random question today. Other than that, we are back next week. Again, we're sort of jumping back in time. This is the time in the pandemic where Netflix were just buying up films left, right, and center. So this film's from 2018. Didn't get a Netflix release until 2021, but it is a legal drama called Monster. It's directed by Anthony Mandler, and it stars Calvin Harrison Jr., Jennifer Ehle, Tim Blake Nelson, A$AP Rocky, John David Washington, Jennifer Hudson, and Jeffrey Wright. What a cast. I'm excited. I know nothing about this film, but based on that, I'm pretty keen to check this one out. Hope you are too. Give it a watch this week. Join me next week. As always, thank you, and I'll see you then.